Hello. Today I want to talk to you about analogy. Here's a definition for an analogy in Oxford Learner's Dictionary. Sorry. You have here the primary stress. There's only one stress, so single stress. Analogy, that's how you pronounce this word. Plural analogies. There aren't any really nearby words. You cannot change the function of this word. But we have here some very interesting collocations. You draw an analogy and you learn by analogy, and that's why we are here today. We do much more than learn by analogy according to somebody else. But before we get there, an analogy, says the dictionary, is a comparison of one thing with another thing that has similar features, a feature that is similar. So, a typical example, the teacher drew an analogy between the human heart and a pump. All right, that's possible. I can imagine the heart as a pump, right? It is not a pump, but they do have something similar. So I can picture that idea. If we go to Merriam-Webster, once again, as I have told you, the definition is going to be more nuanced. The register is going to be more sophisticated, and it's going to tell us that it is a comparison of two, wait for it, otherwise unlike things based on resemblance of a particular aspect. So, okay, much more specific. These are things that are actually different. The pump and the heart are different, but there's something they have in common. And I can make an inference, right? That is to say, draw a sort of conclusion, right? That helps me understand something. In the case of the heart, if I were to see it as a pump, I would be able to understand how it works, right? The more words related to analogy, and here you have synonyms. The dictionary helps you how to choose synonyms, and actually it will tell you something else about analogy, which is within other figures of speech, and it can be compared to metaphors and similes. So analogies, metaphors, and similes also have things in common, but at the same time things in which they differ, right? And then you have illustrations or sentences or examples. Now, why is analogy so important? This guy, you see here, Douglas Hofstadter, I know the name rings a bell with you, not because his father was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics several years ago. He is a physicist, but also a cognitive scientist. That is to say, he studies how our brains think, basically, to put it in very simple terms, right? And he gave this lecture. It's called a presidential lecture at Stanford University. As you can see, it's a bit long, right? But it's worth every minute. I do recommend it. And he tells us, he explains to us that the most basic way in which our brains function is by drawing analogies, by saying, A is similar to B, so I can draw a conclusion, right? Here you have the link to the text for his lecture, right? Why is analogy important? Just today, I got this email from Fundeo, right, telling us that people are beginning to use the word infestación. So if you look up the word infección, nos dice, bueno, como siempre esas definiciones circulares, es infectarse. Infectar es, dicho de algunos microorganismos patógenos, como los virus o las bacterias, invadir un ser vivo y multiplicarse en él. Ahora, si seguimos y buscamos infestación, nos dice, infectación, la palabra que se está diciendo en este momento es infectación. No existe, la palabra que existe es infestación, pero infestación es otra cosa, es, bueno, otra vez son el efecto de infestarse, que es cuando ciertos organismos patógenos invaden, me detuve, invaden el ser vivo y se multiplican como los parásitos. Se habla de los animales y de las plantas cuando causan estragos y molestias en los campos. Es decir, ¿qué ha pasado aquí? La palabra infectación surge por la similitud entre infestar e infectar. ¿Por qué me detengo acá? Porque se trata de una similitud que da lugar a un error. Y ese es el problema. Es decir, sí pudimos establecer algo similar que ocurre entre dos cosas, en este caso entre dos palabras o entre dos sentidos, pero terminamos entendiendo algo equivocado. Para eso les voy a contar este ejemplo. For all her kindness, she was not my friend. Now I'm using the search box only to share this example. For all her kindness, she was not my friend. Debo decir que demasiadas veces he encontrado esta frase mal traducida, esta frase u otra muy similar, en la cual for all se parece mucho al español por todo. Es exactamente igual. Y digo, por toda su bondad, por toda su generosidad, no era mi amiga. Inevitablemente pensamos que aquí hay un problema. ¿Cuál es el problema? Llegamos a una analogía errada. Es decir, pensamos que ese for all significa por todo. Y no es así. ¿Pero por qué se produce eso? Primero se produce por la analogía de que for all es muy parecido a por todo. Pero se produce la analogía y a pesar de que el sentido de la oración parece contradecir mi analogía, es decir, no parece tener sentido que por ser buena no era mi amiga, sería todo lo contrario en todo caso, a pesar de eso cometemos el error. ¿Por qué? Porque el poder de la analogía es muy superior al del razonamiento que me permita decir esto es un error. This is something I keep saying, that despite evidence to the contrary, we actively search for coherence, right? And we are predisposed to construct coherence despite seeing something that is deceptive, right? Now, what happens if I look up for all in the dictionary? Something very simple. The dictionary knows, you see. For all means despite. For all its clarity of style, the book is not easy reading. And if we go to Merriam-Webster, and I look up for all, the same will happen. In spite of, for all his confident talk, he's actually very unsure of himself. She still loves him for all his faults. Vuelvo a insistir, no me canso de ver esto mal traducido y a pesar de que significa exactamente lo opuesto, no es por sus defectos, sino a pesar de. We're going to try something else with another pet peeve of mine, which is something. Wait, before I write it down, she was... Now, on the face of it, she was crying something awful. Something awful is the object of the crying. Estaba gritando algo terrible, si vamos a hacer una traducción literal. Now that's a bit odd in English. I mean, you wouldn't say something like that. I mean, you wouldn't say estaba gritando algo terrible using these words. So I begin to doubt, right? And okay, I am going to look up the word something and see what happens. And when I look up the word something, it tells me that it is a pronoun. Okay, I get it, no problem. It's a very long entry because something is a very popular word. But if I take a minute to look here, other parts of speech for the same word, it says that something is an adverb. That's very odd, don't you think? Sorry, now if you look it up, it says that it is used as an adjective, with an adjective to emphasize a statement. She was swearing something awful, the same sentence I have given you because this is usually the context. So it's not que estaba insultando algo terrible, sino que estaba insultando a los cuatro vientos diciendo, perdón, insultando muchísimo, ¿sí? Estamos enfatizando lo terrible. Y el swearing también. If we go here, please note that Merriam-Webster lists all the parts of speech together. So if we go to the adverb, in some degree, somewhat, using as an intensive giving adverbial force to an adjective, swears something awful. Esto no es insultar algo horrible, sino que es insultar muchísimo, a los cuatro vientos, como quieran, la expresión que quieran, pero es solo lo único que significa es énfasis. So, what is the corollary of what we have been discussing? That sometimes something is staring you in the face. That is to say, it is clear that there's something wrong, because swear something awful is not the way you would say estaba insultando algo horrible, right? No tiene mucho sentido en inglés. But because we're predisposed to construct coherence, we fall into this trap, right? And these kinds of things will blow up in your face. I'm trying to use lots of expressions with the word face, because actually your translation is going to be completely wrong, or if you're teaching, you're going to explain something completely different to that is not what is happening. So even if your understanding of the sentence flies in the face of what you're trying to say, that is to say, is the opposite of what is being or someone is trying to say, we still make that mistake. Why? Because of analogy. So be careful with analogies, because analogies are very useful for us to get to the right meaning. Actually, not to get to the right meaning, but rather to make sense of things. But they may be deceptive. So please remember this word, right? They may be deceptive. Deceptively is the verb, right? And deception, very nice noun. It means misleading. I am going to wrap this up going back here. I am pretty sure that when I said Douglas Hofstadter, the name rang a bell with you, because Hofstadter is the name of a scientist in a TV show, right? Now, I am sure that if you know what TV show I am talking about, you will be able to draw that analogy. However, you will be deceived from the verb something is deceptive and you're deceived. You will be deceived because the character that you see in that show is not exactly this one, right? Well, I leave it up to you. I'm unless you know the show I am talking about, you won't be able to work it out. And also, unless you watch this, you won't be able to work out what I am talking about. But he doesn't look like Leonard. He looks like somebody else. So what I'm trying to say is that we constantly draw on analogies to make sense of things, but we may be misled. So do not force coherence, but make sure that what you're trying to say or trying to explain really makes sense. This question of analogy is later going to lead us to talk about false friends. And that is all. Bye.